Welcome to the Kinvestor Report, where we sit down with industry experts to discuss the latest developments in the small cap sector. I'm your host, Arlen Hanson. As always, please be aware of our standard disclaimer in the description below that no part of this interview should be taken as investment advice. And as I don't know what stocks we're talking about today, Kin may own shares or be compensated by the companies we discuss in today's interview. Be sure to join our network, subscribe to our channel, comment on the videos below, and share them with like-minded investors. We also put on some mining conferences 2 or 3 times a year you should check out. And today I'm joined by Gianni Kovacevic. Gianni is a Croatian-Canadian investor, author, and futurist who has enlightened audiences around the world with his unique brand of storytelling. Gianni is an expert in the analysis of global energy, and he's sought-after keynote speaker who empowers audiences into appreciating the impacts of technology and renewable energy are having on our aspect of society. His best-selling book, My Electrician Drives a Porsche, was launched by way of a one-of-a-kind journey across America in an all-electric Tesla, now credited as the world's first zero-emission book tour. Today, Gianni's joining me from Hvar, Croatia. Gianni, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
Very good, Arlen. Very good. Just, I guess the same as you. Follow market still, but different time zone. But still, you know, I keep current on what's going on.
A different time zone, different view. That's for sure. It looks beautiful. Well, we're going to talk mostly about copper today. I know that's been one of your favorite metals. You've been crazy bullish on it for years and years and years, and looks like the rubber is starting to hit the road now. Lots of analysts were calling for higher copper this year, going into the quarter end of last year, but I'm not sure it was expected to happen so quickly and so furiously just over the last couple of months here. Like, what are some of the recent catalysts that you think kind of kicked off that 375 to 450 run on copper?
Well, let's start with this. Let's get a little background on copper. Is this a good price for copper? Has the copper price really went up a lot? And let's go back 20 years. So copper was at 70 cents in 2000, 2001. Inflation adjusted, all-time low. And what happened, 2003-4, the China super cycle kicked in, and by 2006, copper went to $4. Then it came back and it bifurcated around $3, $3.50, made its all-time high in 2011, $4.50, $4.56. And then it came back, and through 13, 14, 15, all that misery. When I started Copper Bank in 2014, copper was around $2, $2.20, $2.30 for 5-6 years. And then finally, the copper price went to $5, and then it crashed back down to 3.5. Now, why am I telling you all this? It's the inflation adjusted part that's the important piece. The US dollar has lost a lot of its spending power. So if you look at when the copper price moved the first time, 2005, 2006, and it went from 70 cents to $4, that was a 5 or 6x jump in the copper price. And who paid for it? The Chinese, who are now the biggest buyers of all commodities, but particularly copper. The Chinese, they're not interested in playing that game anymore. And so if it was an all-time inflation adjusted high right now, copper should probably be somewhere around $6 or $7. So we're not even close to it.
Yeah, not even close.
After that $5, it came to 350, and now it's moved up. It's around 450, 460. The reason, in my opinion, and I will strongly suggest that this is the correct information, but the reason the copper price moves is because of speculators. It's not the end user. Nobody in the world celebrates a high copper price, particularly the world's largest buyer, the Chinese.
True.
Very few people produce copper. We're talking about 20 companies particularly. And if you go down the food chain, maybe you add another 20 or 30 of them, not a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so everyone's willing it. There's no grand collusion around the world. But if you and I are in the business of making copper cable, Arlen, and we're brothers, we have a company, we're smart. We kind of understand copper prices. There's a time you want to own it, and there's a time you want to sell it, and there's a time you want to just do nothing, because eventually the speculator is going to do the work for you. But the real deep question is, what is that bifurcation price of copper going to be for the next 6, 7, 8 years? And it's going to be higher. You get sort of higher lows and lower highs and these kind of things. And it was a bit of a head fake. I think copper went to $5. Nobody wanted this price. It moved down. A bit of negative sentiment, and these are the speculators that make these trades, and they're willing to kick that can down the road until you run out. Running out of a commodity is not important until you run out. Then it becomes really important.
Very.
And that's where we are right now. We get to these point where you had super premiums, and they're eventually there is a hand to mouth. You end up with a shortage. I wonder if the new bifurcated price of copper is going to be a little bit lower than the inflation adjusted all-time high. So could we see copper at $5.50 to $7? Now, remember, when I did Copper Bank at 2014, 15, 16, copper 220, 230, and the whole bet was saying that copper was going to make an all-time high, and then it was the projects that we owned were going to have more value. It's now Faraday Copper, and $80 million has went into this thing, so certainly that was correct. But I told people, I used to do these big talks. Maybe you saw some of them at this conference. Yeah. They said, when copper goes to $3, everyone here is going to be crying in their beer. And that's exactly what happened. We had a bear market. Copper was $3.50. It was a bear market. It was crazy. It's totally nuts. Yeah. And so the same thing will happen. Copper might go to $6, $7 here. If it goes back down to, I don't know, $5.50, because investors get bored. They want upward movement. There's always something else to do. Oh yeah. And now is a time, I believe, you don't want to be selling your copper shares. There's a time, I think, still to certainly be owning them. And if you don't own some, you want to be looking at maybe taking some positions.
Yeah, I want to go back to one of your earlier comments that when the Chinese super cycle came, copper had that big run to $5. Do you think that we're seeing a demand-driven bull market in copper right now, or do you think this is a supply problem?
I would say it goes back to the speculators involved. That he's the variable, and it's like a concert. If the stadium has 20,000 seats, and you want to buy a ticket, if there's 2 tickets available, there's no premium. But if 300 or 500 people want to get the last few seats, you always end up with that premium. And it's the scalper or the speculator that's going to make that move for us. So I think, I think if you reframe the question for me, just so I can sort of give a really articulate answer.
Yeah, is this increase in copper price more from increasing demand, or is it just literally from lack of supply? Or you're saying it's the speculators in here speculating on lack of supply.
They take material from the market that's they're not consuming it.
Yeah.
And so eventually, at the end of the day, as I said a few minutes ago, running out of a commodity is not important until it's important, until you run out, then it becomes really important. So it's going to be about supply eventually, because you cannot kick that can down the road. There are the people that actually are consuming it, and they want to have a little bit more broader vision. And if there's some, really sophisticated groups that consume a lot of copper, and their gut instinct and their analysis and their, people are telling them, look, this is going to get tight. It's going to continue to be tight. Prices are only going higher. Yeah. They'll take a look at having a lot more inventory. And that eventually you run out, and that's when prices take a jump up. So I think even if demand is tepid, we are not getting great efficiencies through existing mines. There was this theory about 10 or 12 years ago that we were going to be able to get a lot more efficiency out of existing mines with technology, ore sorting. It's millimetrical type of progress, but if you squeeze 5% more out of the orange, on a mine that's producing 200,000 tons, it's meaningful. And if you aggregate on 50 mines, a real number comes out of it. But I'm not sure that's what's happening here. There's also grades falling. So even if they were able to achieve 5 or 10% more efficiency, if grade goes from 0.5% to 0.4%, it's just been thrown out the window. And when you're mining, with these gigantic trucks, and you're mining 20 million tons or 40 million tons of ore a year, it's a big difference if the grade's 0.5 or 0.4. 100%. How many thousands of truckloads have to happen for the same production? So that's also what's happening in the industry. And eventually, we're going to get a new bifurcation price. It's going to be much higher than it is today. It's going to surpass the all-time high. It's going to go to a place where probably the copper price is not worth it. And then the speculators will push it down, and that's where we're going to settle out. And that's probably going to be somewhere, you're going to see a 5 or 6 on the copper price, in my opinion. And that euphoria is going to, even for the average juniors, only last a short while, but that's coming. That's in the forecast. That's not 10 years away. That's not 5 years away. I'd say that's currently where we are right now in the
we're staring at it. We're staring at it in the face right now, is what you're saying. So where do you think the biggest problem with filling the supply gap is? It actually, like you touched base on earlier, we got a lot of these long life mines that are, near end of life. So grades are are diminishing. Is it discovery? Is it the permitting? Is it the funding of these new mines? Is it discovery of these mines? Like how did they fill the supply gap? Where's the biggest problem?
I'd say it's permitting. We found a lot of copper, lower grade, and it was always
Mhm.
before porphyries. If you go back 30 years, they said, oh, it's useless. A 0.5% porphyry is completely useless. Throw it away. No one's going to develop it. Well, that's what we were developing for 10 or 15 years. But it's permitting. We look at how difficult, you name the jurisdiction, you name it, it doesn't matter. The person that had the biggest success, which was supposedly the worst country you could think of, Congo,
Yeah.
has to go after Robert Friedland. What he and his company have achieved is absolutely unbelievable in such a short period of time. It is a gigantic copper operation and only getting bigger. And all these other people, they looked around and what they were, where are they? What have they built? What have they permitted? And the few big projects that have actually happened, look at Panama. Panama has no copper mining culture. And what has happened there? Every 4 or 5 years, governments change. It's a new political issue. We're not getting our fair share. What was the old agreement? And they've, shut down that copper mine. Will it go back into production? Yeah, probably it will. But there's a lot of apprehensivity for companies, almost no matter what, to move a copper project forward. They also have cost overruns. Look what you've seen in the Quebrada Blanca with Teck and other companies. And, a big copper company has a board of directors, and a board of directors of a large company, they're not speculators. They're not, they're lawyers, they're accountants, they're very risk averse people. So it's going to continue to be difficult. So if you have existing production, it's going to become very dear. And if you have a project that at least has the probability of being permitted is the number one thing. If you could say we can have this done in 5 or 7 years, I'm talking a project with a feasibility study ready to go. Those are blue ribbon projects. And if they don't have to be able to produce 300,000 tons a year anymore, that is something that just get it done. And what Copperbank, which is now Faraday, their project in Arizona is a classic example. Copper Creek. Look at the pedigree. It's got a great location. It's got pretty good grade. Not gigantic, but it's not small. And it's in a location where I think there's probably 6 or 7 companies that would seriously look at that is a development project. And it's already been underway for 30 years. So it takes 20 or 30 years to get these things to the actual let's go and build it. But they're getting very close. They're 2 or 3 years away. And in my opinion, I'm still a very large shareholder of the company. That's a takeout target type of situation, and they're still drilling. If they're finding more copper, and they are, that could change the game for that story, for that name, Faraday.
Yeah, I've said this before on my show, but the quote that has really stuck out in my head was the quote from the Freeport McMoran CEO. He said, copper prices could triple, and it would still take us years and years and years to increase their production profile. Like that to me was like, whoa, right? Like, because they've got the power and the political connections to be able to permit these mines probably much quicker than a junior, right? And, for them to say that just tells me that there's a massive supply crunch. And I got to be honest, your $7 call to me sounds cheap. Like I'm a big believer. It's $15 in the mania stage, right? Which would be very quick. In the mania stage,
$7 is like the 450 of 2011. Same price.
So totally 100%.
Same price, inflation adjusted. No difference. No shock value in there at all. No shock value whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that we haven't even seen growth. And we're seeing copper prices here, right? Like I'm a big believer that this copper prices is supply driven. And when we do start seeing demand from the US and China again, and from these other emerging countries, like all bets are off. There's no copper. There's none. Right. So that's why I'm super bullish on the space right now. And in my names, how do you invest in copper? Are you buying ETFs, your funds, producers, developers, explorers, a little bit of everything? Or do you just stick with building the copper companies that you build and, going from there?
I don't have a grand experience like some of these company builders, because like Arlen, I don't know, I think you're similar to myself. I am a speculator, and I like to be someone that follows good science, good people. And I saw Dave Loughton's talk he gave at Red Cloud at PDAC, and he says that you need to be, for someone like me, just following a nebulous of people. If those 6 or 7 guys have somehow gotten attracted to a certain company, because you can't do it by yourself anymore. There just aren't enough people that buy junior shares. There are no brokers that push these things to their clients. So I like to invest in a junior, I'm a bear market buyer. When I did Copper Bank, it was only because the opportunity screamed at you. Warren Buffett used to say, if you need a pencil and paper, it's already too close. Don't do it. It's got to just be an absolute no-brainer. And we were buying 100 million US of existing exploration, of drilling, paid $5 million for it. Like, where's your downside? If you and I want to go start a Copper Junior right now, pay the team, get going, you got to raise $5 million. You haven't even done anything.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we bought exploration at 5 cents on the dollar. That opportunity doesn't exist right now. Now, when the next bear market comes 3 years into it, that might be the opportunity. So for myself, I think people should take Dave Lawton's advice. Go with companies that have a strong nebulous of 5 or 6 good investors. They're always going to be able to fund themselves. They've already done the due diligence for you. Who am I to argue? With who was someone else that I think he also said the analogy, if a Glencore guy is already there and he's quitting Glencore to go work for a company, your due diligence is done. Don't be a smart guy. Something interesting is going on there. And so I think the problem now is some of these stocks have already taken off. So you want to buy something that the chart looks still friendly. I mean, if something's went up 3 or 4x already, it's less palpable. And that's something where there's probably 10 real names out there in copper. You're probably involved with 2 or 3 of them yourself. And then the other ones, you can't predict. If they're drilling and they hit a monster hole, I mean, who could predict that? That's just...
Only God knows what's under the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
sometimes if you believe in God,
the results are announced and the market just doesn't understand it, so there's still an opportunity. So that's why you need to follow these things every day for 1 or 2 hours at least. A lot of the people that watch the show probably aren't, they have a job, they're doing something, but you got to stay current. If you're not staying current, wrong game for you, because you're just going to be behind the curve, or at least get good advice from someone out there that you trust and know that's been there, done that, and can guide you at least in the right path. And then your reading is certainly shortened from hours to maybe minutes.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you're a speculator. What commodities outside of copper right now would you be looking to speculate in?
Well, as I said before, there's a time to buy shares and there's a time to sell shares. And lithium is another one where it's been, I had a couple great bull runs. We started Lithium Bank in one of the bear markets. Patiently build it brick by brick, slowly. Took 4 years to IPO. We did an IPO. It came out at $1.50 a share. Built the team. Paul Matisik, executive chairman, doing a great job. We've already sold 1 project. I stepped off the board a couple weeks ago. My role is done now, having things formed. We've got a great team, but the speculation there is not in the lithium price, Arlen. It's the technology. How is the world and the big companies, the big energy and technology companies and chemical companies of the world, where will they extract lithium from in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Now, we've speculated that the future of lithium is going to be in direct lithium extraction, which means you pump up briny water from a reservoir and it goes through a couple chemical processes, and it spits out a lithium product that's going to go into a battery of the future. There are still people that are skeptical that this is the future technology.
I know.
It works. Companies like Exxon have told the market, in Arkansas, we are going to be producing at commercial scale in the next 30 months. They're about 2.5 years. It was the homepage of their website. Once again, 95% of my due diligence is done when the Coke Industries is getting involved in Shell and all these different companies. So what we've done is acquired large land packages, big projects. We've got Boardwalk in Alberta. We're going to be, Schlumberger is doing the numbers for Lithium Bank at our Park Place, our number 2 project, all public information, largest contained reservoir in North America, good grade, probably a little bit better than what's going all already in Alberta. Well, you can do the math on how big that resource is going to be. And guess what? It's going to be one of the largest lithium resources in the world. A few million acres of land. And think of what Exxon did in shale. They didn't necessarily have the projects. They were skeptical. Shale was formed by other people, or the shale projects were done by the smaller companies, people like George Mitchell and Larry Nichols at Devon Energy. And these are the guys that were ahead of the curve. So they bought from the Bass family 230,000 acres on the west side of Texas, where all the useless shale formations before were, producing 18,000 barrels a day. They paid $6.5 billion for the land. The technology works. The shale is there. You just got to go do the work and extract it. That's what we have. That's what people have to think with Lithium Bank. And Lithium Bank has a ton of cash. Our share price is half of what it was from the IPO. We just sold a project to a large company for 15 million non-dilutive. We only got 49 million shares out. No dilution coming there. Follow the team.
Yeah.
Smart people. Paul Matisic sold 7 companies and more projects than that.
Yeah,
so
no,
I think
it's a
I'm
fantastic
speculating
team,
on that, the technology. Lithium price, I don't care about. If it goes back up, I don't care. If you can't make money at 20,000, you don't have a project. But it's the bigger companies. Who's going to buy you? We're not going to build the projects at Lithium Bank. That's crystal clear. You need a buyer. And we believe big companies are going to keep following this technology. It's not going to come from evaporation in the salars of South America, not the growth. And it's going to come less and less from the hard rock projects because it's instantaneous, lower footprint, and you get the lithium almost instantly. And by the way, we're an extractive economies location, Alberta, and you can sell that lithium to the world, but ideally that's going to go to North America or maybe like to Japan or Korea. So that is a fantastic speculation. And a company, by the way, that's got a ton of cash.
Yeah, no, they do. They've been raising a ton of money, and their share structure is good. Rob and Paul have been crushing it.
Yeah,
I didn't know that you were on the board of that company, or that
I started it. Copper Bank, Lithium Bank. Those are my 2 plays. So cool. I like lithium. Going back to that, there's a time to buy shares, time to sell shares. So you're still an owner or a buyer of copper, in my opinion. You're definitely a hold, probably now a buyer of lithium. Look at Standard Lithium, went from $12 to $1.50. There comes a time where you need to say, you know what, it's not going to zero.
Yeah.
So you want to own it, and just wait, because that's probably where you want to be. But let me be in the doghouse. Here's a commodity I am not gravitating toward: uranium.
Interesting. Oh, I'd love to hear your take. I'd love to hear your take on this, because everyone I talk to is just so bullish. And
so there's a mania coming, okay, or mania maybe already happened. Mania 1.0 already happened. Uranium shares have already risen. But the problem is I've met too many and I know too many CEOs in big power companies. And where the growth for uranium is going to come from, of course, is the growth of nuclear power plants. The problem is the amount of nuclear power plants that are going to get retired in the next 10 to 15 years kind of it balances or maybe outweighs what's going on there with
the new ones that are being built.
Yeah, and nobody. A lot of talk, but nobody gets the benefit from it. First of all, where do you want to build a nuclear power plant? Where? No one wants it.
Yeah,
so
not
you get
my
no joy. You get no joy, even though the green movement, it's the greatest power source ever invented. Unfortunately, it came to man 50 years too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a stigma there, and no one wants to build these things. So if you're in government, by the time the thing is commissioned, you get no joy. You get no credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a big power CEO, you're not the one turning it on. Francesco Starace ran the world's largest electricity company, Enel, out of Italy. They were operating in 30 countries. And he said, if you have a nuclear power plant, operate it, maintain it. It's a blessing. Keep it going. But me, as CEO of the world's largest electricity company, I have no interest in this. They always run, the costs are too high. They're always over budget, way behind schedule. Nobody wants it. You get no points. You get a little bit in the countries like France, South Korea, Japan, China, Kazakhstan, Russia, who have a nuclear industry. But they're trying to sell it to other people, of course. No one wants it. He's going the way of natural gas augmenting renewables. So yes, natural gas, because it's not on 24 hours a day. So yes, when the wind is not operating, fine, or when the solar is not working, fine. Let me give you the math. It used to be 2,000 or 3,000 a megawatt to build conventional thermal power. And then wind and solar were 10,000, 8,000 and falling. A little bit of inflation now, of course. It's around 3,000 to 4,000 a megawatt to build wind and solar now. And thermal still the same thing, 3,000, 4,000. Nuclear, more than 20,000. So you could build a natural gas power plant, wind when it's windy, sun when it's sunny, augmenting them or running, but the emissions, it's not running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the gas. And it's the only thing you can use for intermittent power, Arlen, because you turn it on in 5 minutes. Coal power takes a week, nuclear 30 days. It runs all the time. It's great peaker power because it's on, it's there, but it's otherwise it's on. What do you do with the power? Talk to anyone who grew up in Berlin, Germany. Never had a power outage. There's so much, there was, not anymore, but it was at the days of the nuclear power when Germany was running at full tilt. because it was just always on.
Yeah.
It was overbuilt. So what someone like the world's the largest electricity company, no longer the CEO, but he was for 15 years, when he tells me that, I listen, I say, that's interesting.
Yeah, no kidding.
I can go with that. That makes sense. So why are you speculating in uranium? It's a mania based on price speculation that the uranium price absolutely can go to 150, can go to 200 a pound. Lots of money to be made there. But if, God forbid, there should be an accident at one of the 450 nuclear power plants overnight on a Saturday, you can't sell your shares fast enough on Monday morning. Game over. Insert coin. And I don't care. There's other things to speculate in. Yeah. And with Mania 1's already occurred. So when Cameco goes from $8 to 50, do I care if Cameco goes to $75 to make 50% anymore? I'm out.
It's already seven. It's already been a 7.
Buy a lithium share. Buy standard lithium at $1.20, which can go to $10 again.
Yeah,
that's the trade. So uranium, if you're dealing with guys that are doing exploration, really smart science, you're going to get the results in the next 6 months, good grades, that stock's going to go bonkos. Absolutely. If that's a part of it. But uranium is an actual long-term trade. Not for me. Sorry. I'll stick to copper. I'll stick to lithium, and I'll let those, as Dennis Gartman used to say when I was a young person, I'll let those younger and braver than I
take those waters. Well, there's the bear case for uranium that I've been looking for from everyone that I've been talking to, because sometimes when things are going too good, we start getting blinders on, right? So I've been asking everybody, like, what's the bear case? And everyone's like, I don't have one. And that scares the shit out of me, right? Like when everyone's saying, oh, I can't see any downside of any commodity. There's downside just somewhere. Don't worry. Always.
These green guys, all the green guys that now some of them are turning around and saying maybe that's the way. And remember, nuclear power it's a masterpiece. But it came to mankind 50 years too soon. And because of some of the things that have happened, and now the safeties we have to put there, the fail safes and the safety on the safety on the safety. Like I said, over 20,000 a megawatt and rising, and you're still 10, 15 years to build these things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What is this going to do for you now with the Ukraine-Russian war and the energy crisis? It does you nothing if your power is going to be delivered in 2035. What the hell does the world's political landscape look like in 2035?
God, I don't even want
the joy out of it. None, not a one. That's why it's lip service. It's just talk. It's talk. Show me the state. Show me the state. You have Sumner and Voigt, 2 power plants that have been passed and sold and lost and bankrupt time and again in the United States. These things have been around for 20 years. You've got Hinkley in the UK. The one in the disaster in Finland. This thing was a calamity, because you can't build these things efficiently and on time because you have to have safety on a safety on a safety on a safety. More safeties than an airplane. Which is why they're not going to go that way. They're going to go with natural gas, augmented by renewables as renewables continue to become more and more efficient. Here's another analogy. I spoke with Vestas, and this is about just before COVID. They've installed, I can't even tell you how many wind turbines they've installed. They now used to need 30 kilometers an hour to stoke a wind turbine.
Yeah.
6 kilometers an hour. And then this was the staggering part. He told me, we've collected data on every single wind turbine we've ever installed forever. We now know so much more. So they can turn the turbine. They can pitch the blades.
Yeah.
The efficiencies of these things are 50%, 40% sometimes operating.
Wow.
Operating. So and they know where they work and they know where they don't work. And with the Chinese, they're able to move with DC high voltage lines 3,000 and 4,000 kilometers electricity.
Crazy.
So yes, if the wind is blowing 2,000 kilometers away, you can move it to where industry is. Don't be fooled. But China has mastered every source of energy, including nuclear, and they are growing their nuclear fleet, absolutely. But they're also exporting workers. They have 50 million young men that are never going to find a bride in China, never. So that's these 20 million of young men are always sent to go work around the world. Africa, you name it. Croatia, they just built us a bridge. They're building us a tunnel. A lot of them stay. They never go back. But China has mastered every industry. And of course, nuclear is important. That's why China has a nuclear industry. They will continue to have it, and they will continue to grow it, but not not as fast as they're growing natural gas, augmenting their renewables, especially with the power of Siberia gas pipeline coming from the north and the gas coming from Kazakhstan from their west, but it's a multi-pillar effect there.
Yeah, cool. Gianni, thank you. That's our 30 minutes. And that was very enlightening. I love your passion and your energy. And I love to hear somebody like really get behind what they believe in and say it with passion. So that was awesome. Be sure to check out his best-selling book, My Electrician Drives a Porsche, and which is, I know it's available on Amazon. I'm sure it's available.
It's on Kindle. It's on, what's that thing? The voice, the Audible.
Yeah, Audible too as well. Yeah, so yeah, be sure to check out his book. It's a great read. And once again, if you enjoyed this interview, be sure to join the Kinvestor Network, subscribe to our channel, comment on our videos below, and share them with like-minded investors. And until next time.